Top 32 head coaches in the National Football League. This first tier right here, tier 6, pretty self-explanatory. A lot of these guys are first-year head coaches or don't have a lot of experience as head coaches. There's not really enough or anything for me to judge from them. Like Ben Johnson, for example, I think what you've done as a coordinator is irrelevant. Here we've seen a lot of guys be great coordinators but awful head coaches like Josh McDaniels. So wait and see for guys like that, and other guys like Dave Canales and Raheem Morris, not enough sample size for me to truly evaluate them. So moving on to tier 5, Jonathan Gannon coming in at 24. First year head coach, but the Cardinals did overachieve a bit, I feel like, so that's why he's a tier above tier 6. Maybe he could be a coach, maybe he's a good coach like these other three, Zach Taylor, Mike Macdonald, Shane Steichen. Zach Taylor obviously made a Super Bowl, made another AFC title game, but a lot of guys could do that with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins in that offense. Mike Macdonald, obviously he was a great coordinator with the Ravens. The Seahawks had a solid year last year. I believe they had a winning record or very close to it. We'll see what he does this year. I think I don't know if he was involved in this decision, but going from Geno to Darnold, I think that was a mistake. And Shane Steichen, since the Colts have got him, they haven't had a high ceiling, but they've had a pretty high floor. And I think that's nothing really to sneeze at given the quarterbacks he's had, so we'll see what happens this year with him. Tier 4, I think all the guys on here, worst case scenario, I don't think you could say they're any worse than a decent head coach. DeMeco Ryans at 20. The Texans were a dumpster fire when they got him, but 2 seasons with him, 2 playoff appearances. They've won at least 1 playoff game both those years. The reason why he's not higher is because I think a lot of coaches could do something similar if they had CJ Stroud, who I think is a very good quarterback. Brian Daboll coming in at 19. This might seem a tad high given how bad the Giants have been the past 2 seasons, but really the team he's had to coach has been awful, and he did win Coach of the Year not too long ago, so that's why he's at 19. Todd Bowles coming in at 18. He's made the playoffs the past 2 years, but I think he has a very good team around him. We'll see if he can keep it going this year. Dan Quinn coming in at 17. This might seem pretty low for a guy who just made the NFC title game, but I really think Jaden Daniels carried him, to be honest. He's a defensive head coach, so I think it's a pretty big red flag that the Commanders' defense is kind of a liability for them. 16, Mike McDaniel coming in. I think people have overcorrected on him. Maybe he's not the next Andy Reid like we thought he was in his first 2 seasons with Miami, but I still think he's a decent head coach. Kevin O'Connell, I think he and McDaniel are very similar in that they're both great offensive minds, but they really haven't done anything in the playoffs, and they've shown an ability to get the most out of both their quarterbacks, whether it be Tua or Sam Darnold, so those two are similar, I feel like. Mike Vrabel coming at 14. Don't get me wrong, he's definitely a good coach, but I think there's some rose-colored glasses with him, given for his time in Tennessee. Other than 2020, he didn't really have any playoff success at all, and he's a defensive head coach, but did they ever really have a very good defense? I don't think so. Tier 3, these guys are definitely good, so obviously better than the guys in the last tier. Matt LaFleur coming in at 13. He's won a lot of games, but obviously having Aaron Rodgers, one of the best quarterbacks of all time, is going to help with that. Obviously, he gets credit for developing Jordan Love, but again, I think he's benefited from great quarterback play. Dan Campbell coming in at 12. The reason why he's not higher on this list is because I think he has a great roster around him, and I actually do think he'll be fine without Ben Johnson, but a couple more good seasons and he'll move up the list. He also doesn't have the longevity as some of the other guys here, like John Harbaugh. He's obviously been a very good coach for a long time, but the reason why he's not higher is because he really hasn't had a deep playoff run other than last year, he really hasn't had a deep playoff run since the Flacco Super Bowl run. And people forget this now, but before Lamar came in and emerged as a top 3 quarterback, he was on the hot seat. So is he just being carried by Lamar right now? Maybe, maybe not. 10, I got Nick Sirianni. This seems really low for a guy who's made 2 Super Bowls in 4 seasons, won one of them, and made the playoffs in all 4 of his head coaching seasons, but when you apply it with the proper context, I think this is a fair ranking given that he has an amazing team, one of the best running backs in football, one of the best offensive lines, the best defense in my opinion, and a phenomenal receiving core headlined by A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, also a good quarterback. You could argue that he gets credit for developing Jalen Hurts because when he took that job, Jalen Hurts was not a finished product, so I think Sirianni does get some credit for that, but we also have to remember that not even like 8-9 months ago, early in this past season when the Eagles were 2-2, I believe, people were calling for his head because obviously the 2023 season, the end of that year, that was a dumpster fire. They had to get 2 new coordinators. They were both home run hires in Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio, but it's a really important distinction that he was not responsible for picking either of those guys. They wouldn't let him hire the new coordinators, and both of them, especially Vic Fangio, were awesome for the Eagles. So him having a loaded roster and him not being able to pick the coordinators, that helped them a lot. That's why he's quote-unquote only 10. 9, I have Kevin Stefanski. That seems really high for a guy who only won 3 or 4 games this past season, I believe. But again, his roster is terrible, and he is a 2-time Coach of the Year, so obviously he knows what he's doing. This next tier, all these guys are very good coaches, if not great coaches. 8, I have Sean McDermott coming in. A lot of people think he's a Josh Allen merchant, which I think is ridiculous. He made the playoffs without Josh Allen before they even drafted him in 2017, 2018, that year I believe. The Bills almost have always had a good defense with him, and he's a defensive head coach, and he deserves credit for that. Additionally, at this time last year, a lot of people thought the Jets and maybe even Miami would be better than them last year, so he deserves credit for the Bills outperforming a lot of people's expectations for them after they traded Stephon Diggs. A lot of people that would be a quote-unquote gap year for them. Number 7, I have Sean Payton. Obviously, he was phenomenal with Drew Brees for a really long time, but who wouldn't be phenomenal with Drew Brees? But I think he did an awesome job with the Broncos last season, so that's why he's coming in at number 7. 6, I have Sean McVay, who obviously he won a Super Bowl, so maybe this is going to come off as a little mean or unfair, but I think he's been living off his reputation the past 2 seasons. Because the Rams have had a very good team, but they really haven't done much overall over that time, only 1 total playoff win. And McVay has always had at least a very good quarterback in Jared Goff and now Matthew Stafford, so is he like a great offensive coach, or has he always just had great quarterbacks? It's probably somewhere in the middle, but he's coming in at number 6, nothing to sneeze at. Number 5, I have Jim Harbaugh, who's phenomenal in 3 of his 4 seasons with the 49ers. Last season, he completely turned around the Chargers. He's coming at 5. Number 4, I have Pete Carroll, who had a great run with Russell Wilson in Seattle. A lot of people, including myself, questioned if he was actually holding Seattle and Wilson back because he wanted to install a run-heavy offense despite having a great QB. But Wilson got traded, but despite that, Seattle made the playoffs with Geno Smith that one year, while the Broncos were dumpster fire with Nathaniel Hackett and Russell Wilson. So Pete Carroll, he's shown an ability to win no matter who his quarterback is, and I think the Raiders are going to make the playoffs this year largely because of him. 3, I have Kyle Shanahan. He's always had a very good team around him, especially on the defensive end and the weapons he's had, but whether it's Jimmy Garoppolo, who's really done nothing since leaving Kyle Shanahan, or Brock Purdy, who is Mr. Irrelevant, his offensive system is undoubtedly phenomenal, so that's why he's coming in at number 3. Number 2, I have Mike Tomlin, and I know it's been forever since he won a playoff game, but just the overall consistency he's had, as you guys know, he's never ever had a losing season, not one. Obviously, he needs to start winning in the playoffs again, but when you look at their roster, really the past 4 years, I would say, they've had no business competing at all. The fact that he's gotten some of those teams to the playoffs at all, I think is very impressive. In Tier 1, a tier in his own, Andy Reid, I don't think there's any head coach currently on his level. I'll even argue he could be the best head coach of all time. Yes, even over Bill Belichick. Because I think you guys would agree that if you have Patrick Mahomes, if you have Tom Brady, I don't care who your head coach is, your team wins because of GOAT level QB play, not because of the head coach. So what do? We have to look at what you've done without that GOAT level QB. Andy Reid without Patrick Mahomes, over a dozen playoff appearances, including 5 conference title games. Bill Belichick without Brady, only 2 playoff appearances in 11 seasons. Oof. And 0 playoff wins, I might add. So I really think Bill Belichick is massively overrated. Andy Reid definitely a better head coach than him. I know I kind of went off in the tangent there, but Andy Reid definitely number 1 in my opinion. Thank you very much for watching. Can't wait for football season. Have a great night.